Good morning, Napa Valley Unitarian Universalists, and welcome to this week's online worship service. I am Tricia Lewis, and I am the celebrant for this morning's service. Our guest speaker today is Reverend Dr. Tom Owen-Towle. Reverend Dr. Owen-Towle was ordained in 1967 and is still preaching hither and yon from his home base in San Diego. He is the author of 24 books on social justice, personal relationships, and spiritual growth. Tom is slowly re-engaging his community commitments, volunteering at the homeless center, singing in nursing homes, and mentoring young people. Today's sermon is based upon his latest book, Making Peace with Our Own Death, just published and available via Amazon.com or the UUA bookstore. Reverend Dr. Owen-Towle is honored to be preaching at NVUU and will remain in our social hour, which begins 10 minutes after the end of the service for questions and comments. Brian Shaw is our musician, and May Vader is helping us with technology. May will be recording this service to post on our YouTube channel later on. You are welcome here if you come skipping with joy, and you are welcome if you are heavy with sorrow. You are welcome if you are deeply lonely, and you are welcome if you are surrounded by friends and family. You are welcome whomever you love, whatever your gender, whatever your skin color, whatever your education, whatever your beliefs about God or not God, and whatever the flags of your heritage. You are welcome if you are looking for a community that will love you just as you are, and you are welcome if you will seek a community that will help you grow. Whoever you are, whatever you need, you are welcome here. Come, let us bring our whole selves to this time together. Now, please listen to these opening words by May Sarton. I would like to believe when I die that I have given myself away, like a tree that sows seeds every spring and never counts the loss, because it is not loss, it is adding to future life. It is the tree's way of being, strongly rooted perhaps, but spilling out its treasure on the wind. Now is the time to center ourselves through music. Each week, we join Unitarian Universalists all around the world in lighting a flaming chalice, the symbol of our faith. You are invited to light a chalice or candle at home now, with these words from Reverend Dr. Cynthia Landrum. For the wonder and inspiration we seek from sun and stars, and all the lights of the heavens, we light this chalice. Let us join now in singing our opening hymn. I invite you now into a moment of receptivity and reflection as we share the joys and sorrows of this community. We make sacred the milestones of our lives when we share them with each other. We have here a bowl of water and some stones. If you would like to share your joy or sorrow with all here, please type it into the chat. Then choose a stone in the bowl to represent your joy or sorrow. If you have a joy or sorrow, or even just a concern that you do not need to share with everyone, just type stone in the chat and then choose a stone in the bowl to represent the milestone you are holding in the silence of your heart. If you are holding something especially heavy in your heart and you would like to speak to a member of our pastoral care team, please reach out to us. Leave a message at 707-226-9220 and someone will contact you.
One of our many gifted Unitarian Universalist ministers, the Reverend Victoria Safford, looks at the issues of living well and dying well through the prism of an obituary notice and a tombstone epitaph. And Victoria writes, "In a cemetery once, an old one in New England, I found a strangely soothing epitaph. The name of the deceased and her dates had been scoured away by wind and rain, but there was a carving of a tree with roots and branches, a classic 19th century motif, and among them the words, 'She attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things.' At first, this seemed to me to be a little meager, a little stingy on the part of her survivors, but I wrote it down and have thought about it ever since. And now I can't imagine a finer or more satisfying legacy. She attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things." I mean, every day I stand in danger of being struck by lightning and having the obituary in the local paper say for all the world to see, "She attended frantically and ineffectually to a great many unimportant, meaningless details." How do you want your obituary to read? "He got all the dishes washed and dried before playing with his children in the evening. She balanced her checkbook with meticulous precision and never missed a day of work. Missed a lot of sunsets, a lot of love, a lot of risk, but her money was in order. He answered all his calls, all the emails and voicemails, but along the way, he somehow forgot to answer the call to service and compassion and forgiveness, first and foremost of himself." How will it read? How does it read? And if you had to name a few worthy things to which you attend well and faithfully, what, I wonder, would they be? What would they be? And now let us join together for some moments of prayer and meditation, and followed by silence. O Spirit of life and love and liberation, our prayer on this Sunday is simple and heartfelt. Be our companion. Be our companion for all those who are suffering from the fires and drought, COVID, the pandemic, the losses, the economic and racial injustices that flow throughout our land. Be the companion of all who are hurting, in pain and anguish, who are suffering loss. And be also the companion of those who are feeling deep and expansive joy at the passage of delight and hope and meaning in their lives, marking a special day in their lives, a graduation, a celebration, just feeling full of joy. Be their companion as well. And then be the companion of those who are just feeling blah or indifferent to today. Be their companion as well. And may there be in all of our lives peace and unrest, unrest and peace, sufficient rest to bring us serenity and calm, but enough unrest to keep us spiritually awake and morally on our toes. Peace and unrest, unrest and peace. Shalom, salam, ashe, namaste, blessed be, and amen. And now may we enter moments of sacred silence.
With me, and please don't flee. I look inside when it's hard to see. This eventide, take a ride around the bend. Still with me, abide when the shadows begin. So much has faded, left me jaded. God has changed, it's complicated. From growth to decay, emergence be beyond thought and strategy. Lift to its close and start life's little day. Earth's joys are dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay, and all around I see. All outward changes not abide with me. So many know, I fear no foe. There is a steadiness on which I flow. Through the sickness, grandmother's wisdom is with us. In liminal spaces, feeling so breathless. Death is an exhale, inhale with us. New life cuts through strife like a knife. Somehow we take it in, moving for the win. Shaping change, and from endings begin. You are a holy friend. I fear no foe with the hand to bless. Yeah. Hills have no weight, and tears no bitterness. Where is the sting? Where may thy victory? I triumph still in
It is my deep, excuse me, it's my deep joy to be preaching via Zoom to our Napa Valley UU congregation for the very first time. I've been in your territory of the land. I'm a fifth generation, our grandchildren are fifth generation Californians. I want to especially thanks May Vader and her crew, Tricia and Brian, for occasioning this very beautiful worship service that you put together. Thank you, and maybe we can do it again sometime. My two best male friends died recently, one eagerly wanting to halt a pain-saturated existence, and the other one passing away prematurely of an unexpected illness. We had covenanted for both of these younger brothers to speak at my memorial service, but lamentably I ended up speaking at theirs. And this duo of heart-wrenching deaths has placed my own mortality front and center. And I'm reminded of Thornton Wilder's poignant line, "There is a land of the living and a land of the dead, and the bridge is love. The only truth, the only survival. The bridge is love." Yes, my friends, only love conquers death. Nathan and Paul won't return in person. Only in love do I have them still. I'm sure you can identify with this feeling. My sermon title comes from a quote from the supreme American naturalist Wallace Stegner, who wrote, "I've been lucky. I came from nowhere and had no reason to expect so much from this one life as I've got. I owe God a death, and the earth a pound or so of chemicals. Now let's see if I can remember that when my time comes." Yes, you and I surely owe God, the universe, ourselves, and all whom we meet along the path one death, especially following a full, generous existence. And it must be paid when it comes our time to return to the earth. Picture two children talking to one another around a tree, and the younger one says, it's a beautiful tree, isn't it?" "Yeah, it sure is," says the older child. "But it's a shame that we won't be around to enjoy it when it's fully grown." And the younger moans, "But why? Why? Hey, where are we going?" You see, young children don't really envision death or a finish line, certainly not their own. They may understand sleep and separation, but not death, not the cessation of physical life. But to be sure, we adults, don't we? We have our own share of trouble with death. We tend to resist mortality at every turn. America clearly remains, although we're getting better, we remain a death-defying, death-denying culture. Note a recent ARP magazine lead article, front page, 20 ways to live longer. And I retort, hey, how about 5 ways to live stronger and thicker and more meaningfully? Will we face death in 10 weeks or 10 years or several decades? And what exactly will be the form of our greeting? And which particular indignities might be in store for you or me? Well, whether death comes sooner or later as a relief or as an outrage, we humans need to be prepared. That means making sufficient peace with its inevitability. Friends, there's mindful eating, mindful working, mindful meditating, and mindful loving. There also needs to be mindful dying. Ironically, just when all the world's great minds were beginning to accept that death is death, along came a sane and respectable person by the name of Raymond Moody with credentials in medicine and philosophy and psychiatry, who suggested that we should consider the phenomenon reported by people who've been clinically dead, but then resuscitated by modern emergency medical techniques, because their experiences had a lot in common and seem to suggest that the first stages of death appear to be spiritually positive. Many of those interviewed felt a feeling of peace and wholeness, and none of them was ever afraid to die again. And this is indeed reassuring news to any of us who have been frightened of what might happen to us following death. However, these common and uplifting components in no way provide conclusive evidence of an afterlife. We don't really know what goes on in the brain as the body begins to die. We're all making conjectures, aren't we? Even capable researchers included. Personally, I've come to a sort of benevolent agnosticism on the question of life after death or life after life. I don't anticipate one. I don't hunger for one, but there might just be one. And as a universalist who believes in everlasting love, I harbor no worries. Because whatever happens when I die, love will be the container. That's where my mother and I grew to agree. She from the perspective of her Christianity, and I from the perspective of my Unitarian Universalism. And whether or not there is life after death, surely there is love after death, eternal love. As Unitarian Universalist Beth Norton, the music, and Rebecca Parker, the lyrics, craft in their poignant chant. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding you. There is a love holding all. We rest in that love. Whether death is final or not, it still remains real. Whether it's a transition or a conclusion, it still happens and needs to be reckoned with. As the World Health Organization reports, the world death rate is holding steady at 100%. I'll go further. Unless we make adequate peace with our own personal deaths, we'll tend to remain cautious, maybe even cowards about life, all of its faces, the good as well as the evil. Excuse me. Consenting to die, then, as the poet W.H. Auden put it, consenting to die is a critical awareness and a conscious decision during our earthly journeys. As we say in our Unitarian Universalist memorial celebrations, right at the very outset, Josephina Dokes has died. You and I are alive. So we know who's still breathing in the room and who isn't. Yes, the The spirit may live on, but the body of the dead person is irretrievably expired. And that difference must be saluted rather than camouflaged in euphemisms like he's gone away or she's passed on. In the Jewish burial ceremony, the family is urged to shovel dirt on the coffin of the deceased. And the thud of dirt on the coffin is blunt. It can jolt the heart. But hearing the thud impresses upon those surviving that this passage of death is utterly real. A fellow human being is being placed in the ground and will never return to touch and be touched by us physically. Death cannot be tamed. Death is unknown. Death is mysterious. Let's just say that death is death. As our Unitarian Universalist poet laureate Rick Maston, and a dear friend of our family who died 10 years ago, he used to bellow, "Hey folks, remember we're all terminal on this ward." And a central key, my friends, to living fully is acknowledgement of that fact. Now, death's not only inevitable, it's also natural in the overall sweep of things. About 5 million years ago, all of life was composed of algae and amoebas, of a unified, continuous existence, growing at one end, sloughing off at the other, and into that world of endless glob came the transfiguring event of death. Without death, life could never have risen out of the immortal slime. And now death and life are inextricably linked. Both constitute necessary and sanctified gifts of one supreme reality. For without death, there would be neither that which we love nor the ability to love at all. But I'll go even further. Death is desirable as well as inevitable and natural, especially for those of us who are blessed with a robust and full existence. And I'm not simply referring to certain deaths that bring relief or release from agony. Let me explain. Years back, I was a discussant on a television show featuring a dialogue on immortalism. It's a philosophy that we can, should, and will live forever. And the spokesperson for this approach of cryogenics seemed relatively unfazed by my remarks until I unabashedly announced that even if I could live forever in my current condition, I'd likely turn down the offer. I simply didn't hanker for everlastingness. And he was incredulous, flabbergasted. And for the remainder of our dialogue, he kept trying to persuade me that everyone who was anyone wanted to live forever. His exact words, "No one in their right mind really wants to die." And I said, "Well, I do someday. Yeah, I do someday." And I proceeded to elaborate. And first of all, I said that most notions of eternal life or paradise I find singularly uninteresting. Oh, it'd be nice in many cases, but not all, to reconnect with departed friends or loved ones, but not to establish an interminable sameness of our bonds. And who wants eternal bliss? For me, without the presence of sorrow and struggle, a perpetual existence would prove oppressively bland. Did you ever hear an evangelist describe heaven in terms of challenges waiting to be faced, or in terms of passion or toil or justice? No, it's always in Elysian fields, a sort of Palm Springs with a year-round irrigation system. Heaven is characterized by terrible constancy, no further growth or change taking place, destitute of variation or wrestling. How boring, how eternally boring. But to put it positively, death's presence intensifies my capacity to love and my desire to create meaning starting this afternoon. Every moment with which I'm blessed grows more precious. My life possesses daily, hourly urgency and challenge because I won't always be around. I embrace all the life all the more because it's limited. My dad died at 81 and a half. So did my father-in-law. That's about the average length, and particularly during COVID-19, the number has gone down somewhat. That's the average length of a man's existence. Women get a bit more. What leads me to believe in my 80th year, I turn 80 next month, or actually in October, that I'll get more than that number. That's another reason I'm resting mightily through poetry and songs. I sing in three, I'm getting back to singing in 3 different nursing homes as well as a homeless center. Through sermons and workshops, and I'm dealing openly with mindful dying. And the truth is that my newly published book, Making Peace with Our Own Death, has been first and foremost a gift to myself. Psalm 90 reminds us that we're like grass, that the years of our lives may be 70, or maybe with luck 80, or maybe more. Everyone dies from something, but the psalmist admonishes, teach us to number our days, that we might apply our hearts unto wisdom. I take that as an encouragement, a full blast encouragement to live with more grit and ample grace. Yeah, let's number our days. Let's pay attention to each one of them. Let's dearly and deeply love every precious moment, even the painful ones. So I praise the world that will not be forever. If it were to be here forever, if we were to be here forever, there'd be no real reason to take special notice of this irrepeatably fresh summer Sunday, August 8th, 2021, would it? There'd be an eternity of summers to notice. So it wouldn't matter if we missed 1 or 2 or a dozen days here and there, or season here or there. If we're going to live forever, it doesn't matter if we miss a person or 2, right? There will always be time for other people if we have an eternity. No, my friends. On the contrary, it's because we don't have an eternity with one another that we must seize the time for one another. We treasure each singular season precisely because we just might not experience another one. Has not COVID-19 taught us that? How many of us would clean up the environment, or belt out songs, or grow a beloved community, or travel the world, or raise healthy children, or volunteer at the homeless center, or do anything of much importance if we believe we had an eternity in which to do it? I bet few of us. I don't see many hands going up. A good death permits us to be pretty much the same person dying as we were when we were alive. A good death doesn't mean I'll die peacefully, although I'd like that. A good death is more than going to sleep one night and not waking up, although I'll take that too. A good death is when I go into the ground essentially clean of regrets and resentments, sufficiently serene with my goodbyes in order and current. Do you or I have something we want to say or be or do before we die? If so, let's get to it as soon as possible. What are we waiting for? Now's the time to come clean and be current in all of our bonds and all of our duties. And as for personal legacy, I've come to recognize that my name won't last forever. It may be sooner forgotten than I desire or imagine. And my labors and visions, as worthy as they were sometimes, likely lost in the shuffle. And surely all of my sermons and books will be taken to the dump. If not by children or grandchildren, by somebody, sometime along the line. But I don't know about you. For as for me, I do hope that my peculiar struggles and curious gifts will influence, however modestly, a slew of people in some small way for some span of time. How about you, my siblings? How about you, my spiritual siblings? During the home stretch, we finally get the message that every love relationship ends in loss. Through distance, divorce, departure, or death. We will die, and so will our comrades and loved ones. Yet we experience those we've cherished living on in our souls after their earthly sojourns. We stay allied with the land of the dead, the territory of the ancestors, through the medium of love, the only bridge, the bridge of love. And there's more comforting news, certainly for us Unitarian Universalists. Just as we were graciously ushered into being as a gift beyond our earning, a statistical miracle, so also there will be love, and I personally capitalize love. There will be love surrounding us after we die. Everlasting love is our universalist phrase. Now, there's no need to discuss or debate the particular form such love might take. No one knows. It's only important that we declare with unshakable fervor and hope that the very love that created us will surely caress and comfort us beyond our death into illimitable seasons. With quivering gratitude, then I second the sentiment of the Song of Solomon in the Hebrew Scriptures that love is stronger than death. Yes, love outlasts death. That's good news indeed. And that's enough reassurance for my soul. So, my fellow mortals, in the end, justice comes to everyone, doesn't it? It comes to everyone in order to make room for other creatures to birth on the scene. And so I personally resonate with the way Stegner phrased life's conclusion in a mellow conversation seated with his friend James Hepworth. I've been lucky. I came from nowhere. I had no reason to expect as much from this one life as I've got. I owe God a death, and the earth a pound or so of chemicals. Now let's see if I can remember that when my time comes. When my time comes, may I pay that debt willingly and gladly. When my time comes to re-enter the ground of all being. And I say gladly because I believe we're placed on earth to find and deliver joy. And when our light finally goes out, if we're fortunate, our souls will echo the glorious and soothing passage of Isaiah. For you shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall break forth into singing, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. May it come to pass.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This congregation depends entirely upon the generosity of its members and friends. All that we give in time, talent, and treasure is what sustains this community and makes it not just a sanctuary for us to return to for spiritual nourishment, but an oasis from which we can go out into the world carrying the waters of life. You can donate by going to our website at nvuu.org and clicking on the yellow donate button on the left-hand side, or send a check to NVUU at 1625 Salvador Avenue, Napa, California, 94558. The offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you for your many gifts. All you do and all you give are vital to building the beloved community in our region and beyond. If you are new to NVUU, we invite you to visit our website nvuu.org and fill out the visitors form. This will get you onto our mailing list, and you will receive information about upcoming events and services. We also invite you to our Zoom social hour after the service at this same Zoom link. We'll take a 10-minute break to stretch and get our ever-present coffee, and then we'll come back. We look forward to seeing you there.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from creed to king. Love will guide us through the hot night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hot night.
We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts out into the world until we meet again.
Words by Alistair Shearer. In truth, everything arises in order to disappear. Everything we have, everything we think we are, must at some point be surrendered, for it is only on loan from the bounty of the divine, only on loan from the bounty of the divine.